The Newsboy Strike of 1899. What you need to know and why. In the 1800s, during industrialization, labor was not regulated. Child labor, in fact, was very common. The children provided cheap labor, and their small hands and fingers made it easy for them to work with the machinery. Although their work with the machinery was very dangerous, obviously they're small children working with large machines, and they risk their health simply to provide for their families, some even having to provide for just themselves alone on the streets. The newsboys, although not working with heavy machinery, were prime examples of children working in dangerous conditions. So who are the newsies? Well, before they were singing and dancing on Broadway, they could be found in the streets of New York, struggling to make enough money to simply live. At such young ages, the newsies sacrificed their education and health to survive. Many newsboys found themselves homeless, seeking shelter wherever they could find it. Many young newsboys were influenced by shop owners and spent what little money they did have on cigars and alcohol. Joseph Pulitzer and William Randolph Hearst were powerful names in the newspaper industry, with Joe Pulitzer owning the Evening World and William Randolph Hearst owning the Evening Journal. At the height of the Spanish-American War, Pulitzer and Hearst, recognizing the chance for gain, raised the prices for the newsies from 50 cents per 100 papers to 70 cents per 100 papers. Initially, newsies had little to no complaints about the price increase. Many commuters wanted news on the war, so many were willing to pay the penny per paper. Although, as the war died down, newsies began to understand the trouble they were in. They were struggling to sell papers, so the new price increase led to an unlivable wage. Many began to understand that Pulitzer and Hearst only cared about their own gain and did not care for the newsies. The strike, starting in July of 1899, began with newsboys being so fed up by the high prices that they decided to form a union and strike. One group of newsies, led by Jack Sullivan, took a violent route. They threatened the scabs that were attempting to take their jobs, beating them up, grabbing their papers, anything to deter them from distributing the newspapers. Kid Blink, on the other hand, led the newsies and encouraged a non-violent approach. He spoke to large groups of strikers and encouraged them to stick together like glue. Eventually, the strike led to Pulitzer and Hearst to begin to lose their business. Towards the end of the strike, their distribution decreased by 35%. After 2 weeks, Pulitzer and Hearst decided that they needed to hear the newsies out and agreed to a compromise. Only 2 weeks after the strike began, came a compromise. Pulitzer and Hearst, realizing that the newsies were not going to back down, decided that they would come to an agreement and meet some of their terms. Although the owners did not return to the original price of 50 cents per 100 papers, they did agree to buy back any unsold newspapers. This way, the newsboys could attempt to sell more papers, but not end up in the gutter if they could not sell all of them. Although neither group got exactly what they wanted, they compromised and got parts of what they wanted in some way. The newsboys empowered the little guy. They showed that no matter how small you are, if you band together, you can beat these big corporations and you can get them to listen to you and you can make change happen. In 1938, the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938 was passed as a response and recognition of the years of struggling and fighting led by strikes and protests. From this act came a minimum wage of 25 cents per hour, a 44-hour work week, required overtime pay, and a ban on specific types of child labor. Each of these components was improved on soon thereafter. The newsies demonstrated that a small group with big heart and determination could affect change in even the most powerful businesses.